Hey, how's it going, Claudio?
Hello, Fahan. Hello, Fran. How are you?
Good,
I'm
good. How are
doing.
you?
I'm doing great. And you? I I am a few days without really studying English, so today my English maybe is a little bit slow, a little bit poor.
No problems, no problems. We can always practice.
I was studying a lot, maybe 5 hours days, 6 hours days or more,
Uh-huh.
but you know. I need to start work.
Yeah, no.
And
It's completely understandable, man. Sometimes we have life just gets in the way and we can't always study English or, do other things that we would normally try to do. I understand.
yes, yes, exactly. But I I noticed I noticed that when I get 2 3 days without English,
Hmm.
I noticed that my English skills decrease a lot.
Yeah, because I think it's all about the practice, right? So if you are practicing regularly, you just have to make it a habit, right? Maybe not every day, but maybe every 2 days or every 3 days, if you sit down and practice for, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes conversation, 10 minutes maybe vocabulary, 5 minutes grammar, and then another 10 minutes for a second conversation, that will be helpful, because it just keeps the information fresh in your mind. You can remember things easily when you review them, when you review them regularly. That's, I think, the biggest thing about learning a language, But it takes time. I mean, it's not something that will come easily to people when they are first starting to learn a language or when they are learning something new at the beginning. It's difficult. So we just have to keep on practicing. That's all.
Yes, yes, yes. As you said, uh, 10 minutes, 5 minutes every day is a good way to gonna take the the real English.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, really, I think the other thing too that you can do is if you listen to English news or if you listen to English radio programs or English music, right? Anything. I mean, now with the internet, you can go on YouTube and just, you can type CNN news something, whatever, right? Or if you go to CNN.com, you can watch or listen to, CNN programs. Any of that stuff is going to be helpful to you, right? Because it doesn't have to be necessarily you practicing. It could just be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of somebody speaking English in the background, right? On your computer, in the in the background when you're doing something else, listening to the radio, listening to English music, right? All of those kinds of things are going to make it easier for you to practice when you may not have the time, yourself. So media, movies. I mean, people love movies, right? A lot of people love movies of that are from Hollywood, action movies, all kinds of things, right? Watching a movie, watching a program, those are also very good, and you can watch them with subtitles if you want. Something that I tell a lot of people is you can watch an English movie with English subtitles, right? Just so that you can read what they are saying and you can understand the conversation that way. If you watch it with, if you watch it with some other subtitle, let's say you're watching a movie, an English movie with, Portuguese subtitles, sure, you're going to be listening and understanding, but I think with subtitles, a big problem is people read the subtitles, they don't listen to the conversation so much, right? So if both of them are in English, you're watching the movie in English and you're reading the subtitle in English, that can really help you understand words and conversation in in a way that's better than I think just reading the Portuguese, for example. So
Yes,
yeah.
I've tried to watch movies without subtitles and subtitles,
Hmm.
just with real talk in English. So sometimes it became a lot of difficult to understand because some movies have a specific language and a specific because some movies is passing in the past, for instance, and not all movies I can watch without subtitles.
Hmm.
But Friends, okay, Friends is not a movie, but it's a great
It's a
series.
show. Yeah,
It's a
exactly right.
show.
It's a great
Yes,
series. Yeah.
it's a good way to learn English by friends because they speak really clear,
Hmm.
sometimes really fast, but they usually speak really clear, and it's a good way to study English.
Yeah. No, I
And
completely agree.
hello,
And,
Murad. Murad, our
Oh,
friend,
hello.
our
hey,
colleague.
Murad. Yeah.
Yes, how are you?
Good. 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 Thanks for joining.
Nice. How are you, Claudio?
Oh, I'm fine, Murad. I'm fine. Thank
Glad
you.
to
How
hear.
are you?
I am
Yes.
good, thank you.
Yes.
Great.
So that's it. Friends is a good way to stud for me because the Friends I read can see without
Hmm.
subtitles, uh, and it make me really glad, really happy.
Yeah. Any kind of movie, program, show, anything that you like to watch that is interesting for you, fun. The English is very easy to understand, right? Any of those resources are great, absolutely great. Try to use them as much as you can. Friends is good. Good. I love a lot of comedy shows. I love English comedy shows. There are a lot of comedians with channels on YouTube. Um, it's really, really good stuff. I mean, now you have so many resources. You can really learn whatever you like. So
Yeah.
it
Yes.
really helps a lot with that. Yeah.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So Murad, how was your day, man? Did you do anything cool? Did you anything you'd like to share?
My day has been normal, as
Just
usual.
normal. Just normal.
I attended some classes today
Uh-huh. Were
because,
they good? Did you like
yes,
them? Uh-huh.
normal.
That's good. That's good. Sometimes normal is good, right? We
Yes,
try to talk about exciting things, but normal is also a blessing.
yes.
Yeah.
We say
Great.
no news is good news.
Absolutely, right? No news is good news.
Yes.
So it's a very good expression. So guys, let's get started actually with the topic for today, and we are going to be looking at the present perfect tense, right? So the present perfect tense, when we look at it in English, is really used for three different purposes. Before I describe the present perfect uh, in detail, I wanted to ask you guys, today's article that we will be looking at actually focuses on the academic dishonesty that is present in scientific circles, actually. So one of the things that is actually kind of a liability, right, something that we, as students of language or students in universities or schools, right, we always have to deal with people or deal with situations that involve dishonesty, right? So academic dishonesty is a very formal way of saying cheating. People could be cheating off of students. People could be cheating by having the answers to tests before the test is given. People can be cheating by going online and copying and pasting information. into their reports, into their homework, right? There are many examples of academic dishonesty. So we are going to be looking at academic dishonesty in scientific articles, right? So professors and people who are held to a higher standard, right? People who are judged to be scholars in their fields, right? These people should not be engaging in academic dishonesty. Unfortunately, we do see that that is the case. We do see people engaging in academic dishonesty. So we'll be looking at academic dishonesty, also using the present perfect tense, right? So as a way to kind of segue or lead us into this conversation, I have a question for you guys. And the question is, have you guys, as long as you are okay with sharing it, have you experienced academic dishonesty? Either maybe as a victim or maybe you yourself perhaps engaged in academic dishonesty in the past. If you could share some details of that with us. Claudio, I'll start with you.
Oh, I've never was cheated in my academic time,
Mm-hmm.
but in my job sometimes I already saw some friends that who jobs who works was got
Mm-hmm.
to another person that copy and paste in a in without gave the real credit
Mm-hmm.
to the real author.
Yeah, and Claudio, in English we actually have a special term for this. We call this plagiarism. Plagiarism.
Plagiarism. Yes, yes. In
Plagiarism. Yeah.
Portuguese, we have a similar word, plagiarism. In
Plagiarism.
Portuguese,
Exactly.
it's just plágio.
Plagiar. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
plagiarism.
And it's a big deal, right? With the arrival of the internet, really in every room, on every tablet, on every phone, right? Plagiarism from the internet, copying and pasting information and putting it into a report, putting it into something without giving credit to the source, right, is a major, major problem, right? And it's just one of the things that we'll be looking at today in our article. How about you, Murad? What have you ever been a victim of, or had experience with academic dishonesty?
Yes, I went through that process.
Could
I
you?
had an oral exam in
Uh-huh.
literature.
Uh-huh.
I and a female colleague, we both were examined by the professor. He was a male professor, and I really did well, and even better than the girl.
Uh-huh.
So days later, I was shocked to see the results.
What happened?
She was scored better than I was.
And why do you think that was the case? Because she was a
And
girl?
yeah, and I forgot to mention,
Uh-huh.
when we were being examined, the girl started crying, and she didn't know what to say. And I don't know how that professor scored her better than me.
Was she good looking?
Yes.
I think that's the reason. Or I mean,
And
was she well connected? Was her father a professor? Was her father a friend of the professor?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, okay. I think if
And
she's good looking, I think that's the reason.
yeah, and I really felt very bad.
Uh-huh.
I felt I had done everything in vain.
Mm-hmm. And it makes you extremely angry and sad,
It
just like you said.
demoralizes me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It completely demoralized you. And these are the things that when we see happen in, the news or to other people, we think to ourselves, okay, it's not going to happen to me, or maybe, too bad for them. It won't affect me. But, sadly, at times it does, right? And any victim of academic dishonesty, I like your example, Murad, because your example is an example of an oral exam, right? It's not
Yeah.
something. It's not something written, right? We usually think of academic dishonesty as being something that is written, but academic dishonesty can be of any form, right? It could be preferential treatment, right?
Yeah.
In this example, it seems that this girl received preferential treatment from the professor because of her looks, because of her emotional whatever capacity. Maybe there was something going on. I mean, who knows, right? We are not
Who
aware of
knows?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Murad. I know that might be difficult to share, but that's what I'm trying to get at, right? I'm trying to get to the root of academic dishonesty, how it affects us as the observers, and how it also affects the individuals that go through it. So, any questions about that, guys, before we begin?
No, I have no question.
Okay.
Just a comment that was terrible experience that Murad suffered.
I know, unfortunately, right? I mean,
Years
I
later, I really started to laugh.
yeah,
I
yeah,
started
yeah, I
laughing
know.
at that.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
ultimately, I think, Murad, you're better off than her, right? I mean, I don't think people who are dishonest in anything eventually win the day, right? They may get ahead of the other person for some time, but if they are if they are building their success on lies and on, you know, cheating and all these kinds of things, then they are really not ahead of anybody who is working hard and working honestly, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So that's always something to look to as well. So guys, let's get started. When we talk about the present perfect tense, right? What are we talking about? So the present perfect tense is a tense that we use in English to describe three different scenarios. Um, and the three scenarios that we have are so. Before I get into the scenario aspect, let me just look at the construction uh, the construction of this tense in English, right? We make the present perfect tense. We have a subject at the beginning, then we have the verb, has or have, right? And then we have the second verb in the past participle form, right? So depending on the subject, we will either use have or we will use have, right? And what do we use the present perfect for? So really three scenarios, right? The first type of scenario that we use the present perfect in is when we are describing an experience that we have had in the past, right? Any experience that we have had in the past, right? For example, I have, wow, God Almighty, that door is opening every second. And my apologies for that, guys. For example, the first would be, I have visited Morocco, let's say, right? Maybe I'm a tourist, maybe I go different cities, different countries. I have visited Morocco, right? So that is one example. It's an experience in the past. So that's the first type of situation that we can use the present perfect for. The second type of experience, or the second scenario that we can use the present perfect for, is when we are talking about new information or a change that happens in somebody's life or a change that takes place within the context of a situation, right? So let's say you want to mention something about how someone used to live in an apartment and now they live in a house, right? They bought a house, right? So you can say, with the using the present perfect, you can say something like, he has bought a house. Claudio has bought a house, right? It's a new piece of information. We didn't know about that before, right? Or if you guys know Heidi, as I'm sure you guys know, Heidi is one of our colleagues here on Colingo. She has broken her arm, right? She broke her arm a few weeks ago, so she has broken her arm, right? It's a new piece of information that we can use the present perfect to talk about, right? So the first example was an experience that we've had in the past, and the second example is when we are talking about a new information or a change. The construction of the present perfect doesn't change, right? It's always the subject, then has or have, depending on the subject, and then a verb in the past participle, right? So far, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
No questions about that?
No
No.
question.
Okay. Would you guys mind giving me an example of a sentence in the present perfect then? using either of these scenarios. We can use either one of these scenarios. Let's choose one of them.
I have done my job perfectly.
I have done my job perfectly, right? I have done my job perfectly. Fantastic, right? So that's the first type of example. What's another example, Murad, that you can give us?
I have just cleaned the house.
I have just cleaned the house, right? Fantastic.
And
I
it's
have just
still clean.
That's great.
So if I said I cleaned the house, maybe it's not clean now.
Exactly, right, exactly.
This is the difference.
That is the difference, right? So the simple past, I cleaned the house, it could mean you cleaned the house 2 years ago.
Yes.
Right? You're not specifying
completed
anything.
action.
Exactly, it's a completed action. It's done in the past, and we have no indication about God Almighty. Sorry about that, guys. And we have no idea about when it will, when that was done or anything like that. We just know it's an action that happened in the past and it's done, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at the third and fourth scenarios for the present perfect as well, right? I'm sorry, there's only one other scenario. The first one was to an experience we've had in the past. The second was a new information or a change, right? So the third type that we use, the third type of scenario in which we use the present perfect is actually touching on what Murad just said, right? We can talk about something that started in the past, right? So I'd like to think of this third scenario as a subcategory of the first scenario. The first scenario was when we are talking about an experience that we've had in the past. The third scenario is that we also use the present perfect to talk about something that started in the past, is happening now, and will continue into the future. Will probably continue into the future, depending on the situation, right? So this is where we use the words for and since to indicate time, to indicate, for example, how much time has passed since or for a certain action, right? So it's very interesting because we can say, I have lived in New York since 2011, right? I have lived in New York since 2011. So using the present perfect in this sense, right, I am indicating to you that I started living in New York in 2011, and I am still living in New York. And in the future, I will probably continue to live in New York, right? I have lived in New York since 2011. So this is the most powerful manifestation of the present perfect, right? When we are using it in conjunction, in combination with for or since, right? Since 2011, I have lived in New York City, right? Or I have lived in New York City since 2011, right? I have lived in Sao Paulo for 6 years, right? 6 years is a long time. I mean, it doesn't seem like I have any plans to change that, right? I have lived there, I'm still living there, and I will probably continue to live there as well, right? So that is the third example, that is the third type of scenario that we use the present perfect for, right? Something that started in the past, is happening now, and will probably continue to happen in the future. And the key words we use are for and since to indicate time, right? Any questions on that?
Yes, Fra, I have a question.
Sure.
I could say I live in São Paulo. I live in São Paulo for 6 years. Is the same means of I've lived in São Paulo for 6 years for 6 years.
Well, if we use the I live in Sao Paulo, we would just that by itself is fine, right? As a simple present. But we can't say, it's incorrect to say, I live in Sao Paulo for 6 years. You should use the present perfect. You should say, I have lived in Sao Paulo for 6 years.
For 6 years, okay,
Yeah.
I have lived. If I live in São Paulo now, I just could say I have lived in São Paulo for 6 years. Okay.
Exactly, right? Or, I mean, if you just want to say that you live in Sao Paulo now, you can just say that, I live in Sao Paulo, or I live in Sao Paulo now. That's perfectly fine, right? So you can use the simple present for those situations in which you are just talking about your present condition. You know, your present city is Sao Paulo, right? Whenever you want to indicate time, if you want to say you have lived in Sao Paulo for 5 years, for 6 years, since 2001, since 2002, that is when we have to use the present perfect.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
Uh-huh.
I understood.
Great, fantastic. I understood. I have understood.
I have understood
Yeah,
better.
fantastic, right? Murad, any questions on this?
No, no, no.
No questions? Okay,
Thank you.
fantastic.
No.
No
Yes.
worries. Can you guys give me an example of a sentence using for and since? So let's start with you, Claudio.
Um, since I got sick, I have thought that I am God.
Since I became sick, or since I got sick, I thought I became
I
what?
have thought that I don't know that I am another person.
Uh-huh, okay. Since I became sick, I have thought that I am another person. Okay.
Yes, I
Perfect.
said it just because I don't mind another phrase, more
Mm-hmm.
creative
Yeah, no
phrase.
problem, no problem. You use the present perfect very well in that example, right?
Maybe it's the phrase.
Yeah, no worries though, no worries. Murad, what about you? An example from you as well, please.
Yes. I've used Colingo for 2 months.
I've used Colingo for 2 months, right? Fantastic.
Yes.
So using for and using the present perfect, right? Before I move on, Amal Al Sharif, how are you?
Yes, how are you? Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Have we met before? Is this your first time in my class?
No, no, this is my first time.
Oh, okay. Welcome to class. Ahlan wa sahlan. Where are you from?
You speak Arabic.
Yeah, a little bit. مش كويس. شوية يعني شوية.
No, I'm in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Saudi Arabia. Okay, I was born there. That's awesome. So, Amal, we are talking about the present perfect tense. Do you have access to the Colingo chat window by any chance? On the right-hand side, it's an add-on for Google Hangouts.
Yes, yes.
Do you see the chat window?
Yes, yes.
We did mention a little while ago the construction of the present perfect, and I want to just repaste it here. We use the present perfect to describe experiences in the past, new information, and also to talk about things that started in the past, are continuing now, and will probably continue into the future as well. And really, the construction is a subject plus his or have, depending on the subject, plus a verb in the past participle. Does that make sense? I know I'm just reviewing this information with you because you joined a little late. Does that make sense, though? Could you give me an example of a sentence in the present perfect? Like, let's say, so I'll give you an example, right? For example, Amal has joined the class just now, right? So we have a subject, we have has, because it's she, right? She has, or Amal has. And then joined is the verb in the past participle form of the verb join, right? So could you give me another example of a sentence like that?
I have learned English for 2 years.
I have learned English for 2 years, okay. So this sentence is really good, except that I think it's better because you are still learning this, right? You are still learning English. I think it's better to say,
Since.
I have learned English since 2 years, or since 2 years ago. Or I have begun to learn English since, that won't work. Yeah, that will work.
What's the difference between for and since?
So for indicates a duration, right? If you use for, then you are mentioning the amount of time that you have done something, right? So I have been learning English for 2 months, right? Something like that. If you use since, then you are indicating a point in time, right? I have learned English since 2011, or since July of last year, right? So in your situation, it's better to use since, and because
I'm continuous. Yes.
because you're still continuing to do it, right? And you are, I mean, so it depends on the situation, right? It depends on the situation. You can use both. You can use since or for, right? But you can say, for example, I have begun to learn, or I have been learning English since 2011, right? This is a little different because this is now present perfect continuous, because we are using learning, so it has an ing. It's a continuous verb. So this is a little bit different. Let's think of another example, Ahmed, that's a little bit different. Let's not use learn. Let's use anything else that you want to think about. Like, let's use the verb, like walk. You can talk about walk. Like, I have walked. You have walked.
I walked on the street for
So
1 hour.
Okay, that would be just the past tense, right? Can we make it up in the construction of the present perfect? So you have to use has or have, right? The present perfect construction, it needs to have has or have in it, right? So how can we change that sentence you just said to use has or have?
She has walked for 1 hour.
She has walked for 1 hour, right? Perfect, right? So you were talking about the amount of time that she spent walking. She has walked for 1 hour, and you could have said, you could have also said she has walked. No, that's fine. We'll just leave it at that. She has walked for 1 hour. Yeah. That way we are keeping the for, and we're also using the past participle with the verb have, or with the verb has in this case. I'm sorry. Right. So this is the basic idea of what we were talking about in class. If you have questions about this information later on, just feel free to ask me as we continue. Sounds good?
Yeah, that's good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay, let's get started, guys. So we will take a look at the article for today. And so Amal, I was mentioning to these guys before that the article is about cheating in an academic setting, right? Cheating that happens in schools, universities, and unfortunately cheating that happens between professors and between scientists. That's the subject of today's conversation. So I'm pasting the article link here, guys. If you guys could please open that up, that would be great. And I'm also going to be screen sharing my screen so that you guys can see the article on my screen as well. So, and let's get started. Some online journals will publish fake science for a fee. Many online journals are ready to publish bad research in exchange for a credit card number. That's the conclusion of an elaborate sting carried out by Science, a leading mainline journal. The result should trouble doctors, patients, policymakers, and anyone who has a stake in the integrity of science, and who doesn't. The business model of these predatory publishers is a scientific version of those fishes from Nigerians who want help transferring a few $1 million into your bank account. To find out just how common predatory publishing is, science contributor John Bohannon sent a deliberately faked research article 305 times to online journals. More than half of the journals that supposedly reviewed the fake paper, accepted it. This sting operation, Bohannon writes, reveals the contours of an emerging Wild West in academic publishing. Online scientific journals are springing up at a great rate. There are thousands out there. Many, such as PLOS One, are totally respectable. This open access model is making good science more accessible than ever before, without making users pay the hefty subscription fees of traditional print journals. It should be noted that Science is among these legacy print journals, charging subscription fees and putting much of its online content behind a paywall. But the internet has also opened the door to clever imitators who collect fees from scientists eager to get published. It's the equivalent of paying someone to publish your work on their blog, Bohannon tells Schatz. These sleazy journals often look legitimate. They bear titles like the American Journal of Polymer Science, that closely resembles titles of respected journals. Their mastheads often contain the names of respectable-looking experts, but often it's all but impossible to tell who's really behind them or even where in the world they're located. Bohannon says his experiment shows many of these online journals didn't notice fatal flaws in a paper that should be spotted by anyone with more than high school knowledge of chemistry. And in some cases, even when one of their reviewers pointed out mistakes, The journal accepted the paper anyway, then asked for hundreds or thousands of dollars in publication fees from the author, right? So I'm going to skip a couple of these paragraphs here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one right here, in the end, the paper's fictitious authors, I'm starting back here, so this is a fake paper that this journalist sent out, right? The paper's fictitious authors got 157 acceptance letters and 98 rejections, a score of 61%, right? And that's way higher than I expected, Bohannon says. I was expecting a 10 or 15%, or worst case, a quarter accepted, right? So it's really alarming the rate at which some of these, completely false papers are being accepted and are being published, right? 61% were accepted. And the information in them is garbage, right? Anybody who knows anything about science is going to be able to understand that this is not real information. The highest density of acceptances was from journals based in India, where academics are under intense pressure to publish in order to get promotions and bonuses, right? This is actually really sad, right? So the highest rate of acceptances was from journals based in India. We also see, for example, that I'm just going to be jumping down a little bit here. This one right here is really important. But online journals don't have to worry about subscribers. They make their money by charging contributors who have a strong incentive to get published. So the more papers they publish, the more money they make, right? This is a situation with online journals, unlike paper journals. So two big questions arise out of all this. What damage is done by publish anything journals, and what can be done about it? Right. So I think that's a good point at which to stop looking at this. And I want to ask you guys, right, what is the damage that we can possibly, what is the damage of having articles or having publishers that are publishing anything? What's a very bad thing? What's a very bad consequence of that? Claudio, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's a very difficult article, not for me understand, but to my English understand.
I can help you with that. That's fine, Claudio. I can help you.
Okay, but if I understand completely, the real problem is that some universities have been publishing and fake articles just to get the fame, to get the famous thing by the article could get to this universe, to that universe. So in Brazil, for instance, I think that our universities have published a lot of articles, but I'm sure that a lot of these are fake. Because in my opinion, all persons in that job can get a good thing, and what I mean, and for the teacher maybe it could be good, to the student it could be good too, and we have no persons to check if the article is good or if the article is fake. But in my opinion, the great damage that this way to do articles, the great damage that it can
that they are having, or that they're bringing, exactly, yeah, that they can bring.
Is maybe the science knowledge can decrease a lot, because in the first hand, we have a lot of articles being published, but in another hand, we will see that a lot that articles are fake and have no utility for the society, and we will see that the government maybe close the eyes to that position of the public universities, because it could be good to the government said to the population that, oh nice, these articles are great, our universities are doing great, are doing well. And but in the second moment, we have that a lot of students and a lot of universities and a lot of money put into the science knowledge are not bring anything good. And the most of time when the fake articles are being published.
You know, I agree. I agree 100%. There, I think what happens most, what is most damaging, I think, is that the people will lose the trust that they have in science, right? If you are noticing articles that are just being published for money, for fame, for whatever, right? Will the public trust scientific knowledge anymore? People will stop to respect science and scientists, you know, and that's a big danger. I mean, we talk about research and healthcare and everything that we talk about when it comes to science. If people lose interest in that, if people start to treat it with disrespect, with disregard, then that can be a major problem for society, right? So 100% I agree with you, Claudio. What about you, Murad? What's your take on this?
Sorry, I was muted.
No worries.
I think this type of fake article can really misconduct the viewer and give them false ideas or concepts or information regarding the field it discusses. And as a result, the viewer himself can transmit to other people the false ideas that he has received from the false or fake articles, especially students who are interested in researching. This really can ruin their knowledge.
Exactly right, because you're basing everything, you're basing all this on fake knowledge, on fake understanding, right? Nothing is really based on fact. If you are reporting it on fake sources, then nothing is really based on fact. And how many times do we see research papers get quoted and requoted and republished in other research papers, right? It happens very frequently, right? Research papers, if for example, the National University of Singapore or something, I'm just going to choose a country with a very good university, right? Let's say the National University of Singapore publishes a fake article by mistake, right? All the universities that refer to that article, oh, look at this article, right? So many thousands of students can be misled, you know? 100%, I agree with that. How can we inject some honesty into the system? Claudio mentioned that, you know, there might not be people that can review this information. There just might not be people that can say, this is fake information, this is true information, right? So how can we bring that honesty into the system? Is there a way to do that?
I think it's the job of experts.
The job of experts. So what do you mean by that?
Unless you know well about the subject discussed, I'm not sure you're going to realize if it's fake or genuine.
Yeah, right. And is there a way to mandate that each of these articles receives a review of some kind? I mean, this is the age of the internet, right? In the past, to be able to publish anything, it would have to go through paper, it would have to be reviewed physically by somebody, right, and then published. Now you can type something up, go on a website, say submit your paper, and pay $3,000. Next thing you know, you're a published author. Your name and that article is in a magazine.
This is a problem of plagiarism.
Yeah, right. Open access environment, right? We see benefits in this in Wikipedia, for example. Right? Wikipedia, if you can write whatever you want, but they do have a system of review, and they see millions of articles, on maybe a monthly, weekly, or monthly, every 2 months, people are reviewing the information that are on there. The users are flagging the information. This is not correct. This is correct. I mean, could that be an approach, or is that something that's just not going to work for something like scientific papers? I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm just asking you guys what you think.
The example that you provided is good.
Wikipedia?
Yes. Especially if the people who have the duty to view the contents of Wikipedia are experts. This can work.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, Claudio, let me ask you this. Do you think it would be a good step to shut down some of these websites that are publishing these fake articles? Can maybe governments work with, scientists to identify which of these websites are the worst websites, the most damaging websites, and maybe shut them down?
No, maybe, in my opinion, the government, can't control this kind of things, because if you take off one side of the air and another side, and a lot of other sides will appear in another moment. So, in my opinion, the most important solution is to explain to people that.
Oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry, someone else has it. Go ahead.
And in my opinion, the most important is to teach to people that nothing, all the things that they are reading by internet is real. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of in the past, the person really needed to know to talking about. In these days, any person can talking about anything because we have internet. So the person will search in the internet. So in the moment to the another moment, the person became genius.
That's a good way of putting it, right? It's a good way of putting it. I mean, we can become instant professors. I can tell you guys I'm a doctor. Am I a doctor? No. Right? Yes. But if I say I'm a doctor and I sound professional, I can make people believe that. If I write something that sounds good, these publications will, they will publish this information.
Yeah, so in another day you create a blog talking about medicine, and in another day you will have a lot of fans asking you about this and that, and consulting you about these things. So in a year, maybe you will be writing about medicine in the internet. So it's very common in internet. Of course, it's an exaggerated way to talk.
Think about it. But it's happening. It's happening maybe at a slower rate, but the danger is still there, right? We still have the danger of people doing this and providing false information. and it's very troublesome. When I think about this, I'm not happy that this is happening, right? Especially for someone, my academic background was in biology and history, so I did a lot of reading, a lot of writing. I always had to publish a ton of different papers and things like that, and I researched my life when it came to this stuff, right? I really worked hard, but these people aren't doing that. So, all right, guys, any last minute questions? I have another class starting right now, so I'll be moving on to that.
Okay, for real. Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
Yeah, no, you guys are welcome. No other questions?
No question.
Awesome, guys. We'll see you soon. I have another class starting, but otherwise, we'll talk later.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Alrighty, guys. Take care.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Take care. Bye-bye. If you listen to English news or if you listen to English radio programs or English music, right? Anything. I mean, now with the internet, you can go on YouTube and just, you can type CNN news something, whatever, right? Or if you go to CNN.com, you can watch or listen to, CNN programs. Any of that stuff is going to be helpful to you, right? Because it doesn't have to be necessarily you practicing. It could just be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of somebody speaking English in the background, right? On your computer, in the background when you're doing something else, listening to the radio, listening to English music, right? All of those kinds of things are going to make it easier for you to practice when you may not have the time, yourself. So media, movies, I mean, people love movies, right? A lot of people love movies of that are, from Hollywood, action movies, all kinds of things, right? Watching a movie, watching a program, those are also very, very good. And you can watch them with subtitles if you want. Something that I tell a lot of people is you can watch an English movie with English subtitles, right? Just so that you can read what they are saying. Hey, how's it going, Claudio?
Hello, Fahan. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And you? I am a few days without really studying English, so today my English maybe is a little bit.
And you can understand the conversation that way. If you watch it with, some other subtitle, let's say you're watching a movie, an English movie with, Portuguese subtitles, sure, you're going to be listening and understanding, but I think with subtitles, a big problem is people read the subtitles, they don't listen to the conversation so much, right? So if both of them are in English, you're watching the movie in English and you're reading the subtitle in English, that can really help you understand words and conversation in a way that's better than, I think, just reading the Portuguese, for example. So,
Yes, I've tried to watch movies without subtitles and subtitles, just with real talk in English. So sometimes it became a lot of difficult to understand because some movies have a specific language and a specific because some movies is passing in the past, for instance, and not all movies I can
sit down and practice for 5 minutes just 5 minutes conversation, 10 minutes maybe vocabulary, 5 minutes grammar, and then another 10 minutes for a second conversation. That will be helpful, because it just keeps the information fresh in your mind. You can remember things easily when they are when you review them. When you review them regularly. That's, I think, the biggest thing about learning a language. But it takes time. I mean, it's not something that will come easily to people when they are first starting to learn a language, or when they are learning something new at the beginning. It's difficult. So we just have to keep on practicing. That's all.
Yes, yes. As you said, 10 minutes, 5 minutes every day is a good way to gonna take the real English.
Yeah. And I mean, really, I think the other thing too that you can do is
It's slow a little bit, poor.
no problems. We can always practice.
I was studying a lot, maybe 5 hours a day, 6 hours days or more.
Uh-huh.
But I need to start work.
Yeah, no,
And
it's completely understandable, man. Sometimes we have, life just gets in the way, and we can't always study English or do other things that we would normally, try to do. I understand.
yes, yes, exactly. But I I noticed that when I get 2 3 days without English,
Hmm.
I noticed that my English skills decrease a lot.
Yeah, because I think it's all about the practice, right? So if you are practicing regularly, you just have to make it a habit, right? Maybe not every day, but maybe every 2 days or every 3 days. If you